Welcome to Freezer Milk Podcast. I'm your host, Bridget, along with my husband, Chris. Podcast where we talk about the comedic side and serious side of parenting, life, and relationships. We are boy parents. We have two boys, Enzo and Rhett, with about a 6-year age gap between the two. You can check out our website, freezermilk.com. Also, feel free to follow us on Instagram at Freezer Milk Podcast. Thanks and hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, everybody. It's been a long week. We got a show for you today. We got to talk about some family-related stuff. Me and Bridget were talking. We got an email today from her mom, who, for most of you guys out there that listen, you understand that their relationship's pretty distant, and she doesn't really speak to her parents. But we got an email from her, and it's very forward, very just short. And Bridget kind of felt persuaded to kind of talk about her childhood and her parents growing up. So we'll kick it off.
And why we don't talk to them.
Yeah.
Very limited interaction.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about growing up?
Man, my parents are fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like,
That's the truth. I got some stories for you guys.
My childhood, when I look back on it, it's fucking weird. It is. There's no other words for it. So my mom never worked. But if we were not in school, she didn't like to be home with us all day, so she would leave Noelle and I home for 5-6 hours on end to fend for ourselves at 7 and 9 years old. Like, way too young to be left home alone for that long period of time. And she'd always, make sure she got home right before my dad did.
Convenient.
Uh-huh. They would send us out in the yard to pick weeds for hours on end. And that was just part of our contributions to the household. Picking weeds.
More or less just to get you out of the house so you'd stop annoying them, right?
Mm-hmm. Pick weeds until, it got dark outside. We didn't have TV growing up. They finally got internet when I think we were middle or high school maybe, but we never had cable. We were not allowed to watch any PG-13 movies. We were not allowed to listen to secular music. It had to only be oldies or Christian music, because oldies are apparently fine. Makes no sense. It was just weird. We went to a private school. We were in, a church our entire lives. Nothing was ever a choice. They had full control over everything growing up. It was never, going to church and religion was never a choice for us. This is our lifestyle and this is what we do, so you will fall in line because you're our children, and you won't act out because you're our children, and you'll wear what we tell you to wear because you're our children. The amount of control is kind of terrifying when I look back at it, especially as a parent. And it makes sense why Noelle and I had our own individual issues, and why I struggled a lot as a kid and as a teenager and young adult with trying to find kind of who I am, and just very, my mom, she would lash out in anger verbally. She was a narcissist from day one. Everything was about her. We couldn't start opening Christmas presents on Christmas morning until Mom decided she was ready, which meant she got to have her breakfast. My dad would serve her coffee like a fucking queen. And then when she's had enough sips of her coffee, she would decide, like the royal fucking Queen of England, that she was ready for present time on Christmas morning. Or my favorite was, my birthday happens to coincide on Mother's Day every couple of years. And growing up, it didn't matter how young I was, if my birthday fell on Mother's Day, I was told that my birthday would be celebrated on a different day, because Mom was a mother before I was her daughter, because I'm not the oldest. So therefore, my day gets moved.
Tell them a little bit about that horror story you told me that your mom used to send you with someone who cleaned houses.
Oh, God. So there was this bakery in town back in Maryland called Megan's Bakery. Really good. And Megan had a sister who I can't remember. Janice? No, I can't remember her name right now. Who used to clean houses. She didn't clean my parents' house. My parents had their own house cleaner who used to talk shit about them when they weren't there, which I thought was hilarious. But my mom became friends with Megan, kind of, and then somehow kind of became friends with her sister, and thought it was a great idea when Noelle and I were like older, elementary school, to send us off with this lady. And this lady would basically babysit us, but she would take us to houses she was cleaning. It's very weird. And then it gets weirder because, like, Noelle and I were always fascinated by, like, oh, like a whirlpool tub, like a jacuzzi tub, because we didn't have one in my parents' house. So if we were at a house she was cleaning and they had one, this fucking lady would let us take a bath in it.
This is like your worst nightmare.
It's like, it's so fucked.
It really
There has to be something super wrong and super traumatizing, like, underlying there that was happening that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, who is this woman? Did my parents know that she would allow us to strip down butt-ass naked and take a bath in these strangers' fucking house?
Yeah, where are these cameras?
Right? I mean, this is a day and age before people were to put cameras in their house, but, like, oh my God. This is why I am, like, a helicopter parent, and I don't fucking trust people with my kids.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, Like, it was hopefully totally innocent, but it's fucking weird. It is. There's no way around it. Like, my whole childhood was just weird. My parents had weird rules. It was just, ugh.
It's interesting because, you know, the first time I went up there, you know, you used to tell me kind of how your parents were, and
Let's rewind for a quick second. So, grew up, raised in Maryland. I moved to Arizona. I was not close with my parents. I have not been close with them most of my life because they shunned me when I acted out and didn't do things that were in line with their religious views. They then made me confess everything that I was doing to the pastor and his wife, who then told the whole church, which then got me shunned by my entire church that I'd grown up in. Like, just not close with them because they've made terrible choices. I was homeless for a period of my life as a very young adult because they wouldn't let me come live at their house when I was, like, on my dire straits, and they considered it quote-unquote tough love. But it was too tough of love because it was, like, wintertime in Maryland, and I was sleeping in my car. And,
very
like,
traumatizing.
I slept in my storage unit and had somebody lock me in at night and just hoped that they
Would come back in the morning.
didn't get in a car accident and die and come back and let me out in the morning. Like, it seems like an alter life. Like, I look at it now and it doesn't even seem like that was my life. Like, I distinctly remember the feeling of someone locking me in a storage unit to sleep. And that was my only choice I had at that time, because in my parents' mind, they were trying to teach me tough love at, like, 18.
It's a hell of a lesson.
Yeah. It pretty much taught me that I
can't trust them.
Can't trust them at all, which I already knew.
Mm.
So I moved to Arizona, and I was kind of excited to be, like, over 2,000 miles away. And then I had Enzo, and all of a sudden my parents want to retire in Arizona because my sister had already pretty much cut them out of her life too. So all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're going to move to Arizona too. Yay.
Fortunately for you, they're only a couple hours away, but...
Yeah. So they're a couple hours away. So the first time you went up.
Yeah. The first time I had gone up, Bridget had kind of forewarned me. Not in so much detail, only because I think she was still trying to make a good impression. But she did give me a little bit of a heads up about her parents and kind of type of people are. And if anybody knows me, like, my parents aren't exactly, the cream of the crop. So, for all their faults, I guess they try. But the first time I went up there, I just got a horrible feeling. Like,
Yeah.
I felt, not so much by your dad, but by your mom. And I always felt like I could never get comfortable there. Mm-hmm. And I was always watching, like, what I said and how I was acting and what I was doing, and it was very uncomfortable. I don't know how many times after that we went up there for like Christmas or whatever that I told you, I was like, I'll sleep in a hotel. Like, straight up.
I was like, you're not leaving me in the trenches taking grenades.
Well, her parents wouldn't let me stay at their house.
Yeah.
The first time I went up there. And, I understand to a certain extent, I guess. They don't know who I am. I'm just some guy that you're dating, et cetera, et cetera. And they don't know who I am. And so they made me sleep in their neighbor's house in Prescott, Arizona in the middle of winter because their neighbors were good friends and they were in Mexico for the winter, so they winterized their house. Well, if anybody knows what winterizing a house is in Arizona, you pretty much shut off all power to the house and you treat the lines so you don't freeze the water. So they put me in this house. I'm actually suffering from a work injury.
Yeah, your hand gets injured.
I couldn't even zip up my pants. I couldn't put a shirt on, et cetera, et cetera. I'd hurt myself at work, but they put me in this house and it's no heat and no running water. And I'm just in Prescott, Arizona, which most people wouldn't think that it would get cold, but it gets 20s.
They're what, 5,000 elevation?
Yeah, I mean, it gets in the 20s and it's cold.
Snow.
It gets cold in
They
those
had
houses.
snow that time when we were there.
So, needless to say, the first trip was a very awkward, very uncomfortable for me.
I think you realize now, like, the whole reason they had you sleep in another house had nothing to do with the fact that they didn't know you. It's simply about sex.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know what it was.
My parents, for some reason, are fixated on the fact that Bridget doesn't live the religious lifestyle that they want. So therefore, the greatest sin of all is sex outside of marriage. Mm. So therefore, if you were in the house, we were going to be rabbits that are in heat and not be able to control ourselves.
Well, the next time we decided to go up there, and this is my fault for agreeing, but I went up there, and Bridget said, the only way we're coming up here is if Bridget can, or if Cree can, sleep in the same house. He's not sleeping in the fucking neighbor's house.
And I said, he didn't have to sleep in our freaking bedroom. And at this point, we were living together.
Yeah,
because this was like rent. Almost a year later.
Yeah, we had rent together. We were, we were trying to buy houses and stuff and whatnot. And
you had watched Enzo when I was in Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, like this was a whole deal. This was, this was a relationship.
Yeah. And
so they set me up in the downstairs office in this house that's probably 3,000 square feet. It's a 5-bedroom house. Yeah. 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms upstairs, the master's downstairs, and an office downstairs. Well, the office is completely jam-packed full of their stuff. So they set me up, they moved a bunch of stuff, and they put an air mattress in there. Well, okay, I could have made do with that. I understood that, but the air mattress had a hole in it. So, middle of the night, I ended up on the floor anyway. And I had told Bridget about it, and they said, absolutely not, could I not sleep in one of the bedrooms? So they blew it back up. Well, needless to say, the next time I went out there, Bridget had she just basically told them that we weren't going to come back up unless I could get a bed. An actual bed.
Right, because at this point we owned the house.
Yeah, because Enzo had his own
different house. Like, we owned a house together.
Enzo took one of the guest bedrooms. Mm. You took one of the guest bedrooms. Mm. You're like, I'll sleep with
Enzo.
And Cree can have the other bedroom. Mm-hmm. This is the only way we're coming up. And so they finally agreed to it and let me stay in the other bedroom. Having said that, I was sleeping in the other bedroom, and in the middle of the night,
I heard a door open.
You could tell that part.
Yep. So I heard a door open, and I just knew. I was like, fuck. My mom is checking on him. Like, literally. Not checking on Enzo and I. No, she's fucking checking on Cree to see if he is alone in bed. Or if I am in bed with him. Because, heaven forbid, she trusts her daughter over the age of 30 to listen to their wants and not sleep in the same bed as you.
Yeah.
But I was like, benefit of the doubt. So you wake up in the morning, I was like, hey, did you get to go to the bathroom middle of the night last night? Because I heard your door open around 2 a.m. And you go, no, I slept straight through the night. I was like, cool. That's what I thought. Please don't break up with me. My mom came and checked on you in the middle of the night. But, like, how fucked is that?
What was my response?
You're like, well, damn, next time I'll make sure if she doesn't, I'm laying butt naked on the bed. But, like, how fucked is that? It's so fucking rude. You're a guest in her house, and she opens the door to check on you while you're sleeping. Doesn't check. She could have just checked on Enzo and I and put two and two together and said, there's fucking Bridget. Obviously, she's not in bed with Cree. But no. She violated your personal space and boundaries by checking on you.
Was that the trip we left early? Remember we came back early? We were supposed to stay until like Sunday. We ended up leaving Saturday.
I don't know.
One of the trips, we were supposed to stay like a long weekend. And I think I got tired of it. And you got tired of it. And we were just finally like, fuck it, we're going home.
But like my mom, I remember like as a kid, I used to literally like put a little tiny piece of paper in my door to see if she would come to my room middle of the night, and I would put things like randomly out, like my dresser and on the floor and stuff, to see if she would disturb them in the middle of the night, because my mom would go through my room and my drawers and my books. She would go through Noelle's diaries. Like Noelle started writing her notes in her diary like, Mom, stop reading this. It was just horrible. And everybody from the outside that looked at our life growing up was like, oh, like, they're so privileged. Their parents are not divorced, and their mom doesn't have to work, and they get to, you know, enjoy some stuff in life, and they go to private school. Like, they must be just little rich brats. No, our home life fucking sucked. It was a very, very, like, abusive situation from a narcissistic
invasion of privacy,
a narcissistic parent, no respect for boundaries, nothing was truly ever yours. The manipulation and like the gaslighting that would happen, we could never be right about anything if it disagreed with what our parents thought.
Yeah.
So I was so like mortified that she had done that to you, because I was just mortified. I was like, this dude's going to break up with me over this. And he has every right to. My parents are fucked.
Guess what? I'm still here after being spied on and her mom giving me a hug and grabbing my ass.
Oh my God. She used to groom you. Grooming is like a term in like a sexual abuse community of like brushing dirt off of somebody or constantly like fixing their hair or grooming. It's normally what you think of like pedophiles do. It's fucking disgusting. And my mom would fucking do this shit to you. We went to like the pumpkin patch and she was like, oh, Chris, you have some dirt on your butt there. And she like kept wiping at this invisible dirt. Or she would like constantly try to like touch you or sit extremely close to you on the couch. Or she was like, her whole side of her body was pressed against yours. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. It's so fucked. It's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
Yeah, your mom's out there.
There's something seriously fucking wrong with her.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, we were talking about that the other day. Like, we were talking about how my mom's a narcissist. My mom is a completely different type of narcissist.
Yeah. There's like a functioning
narcissist. Your mom is definitely not there.
What's the word? Someone that just has like no real true feelings. Sociopath.
Yeah, probably.
Psychopath. Something like that.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right. I mean, she really doesn't. You know, that's what all has led up until this point. And now her sons, she doesn't even know about one of them.
Yeah.
And the other one can't have a relationship with them because we are too worried that she is going to damage him.
She's extremely emotional damaging. So that's the thing. So when they moved to Arizona, I started like allowing them back in my life at the time. And then I got divorced from Enzo's dad, and I definitely spent more time just giving Enzo some form of family on my side. And he was younger at the time. But I started to notice that she would just show him off. Like, go and, like, flaunt him like a trophy to her neighbors. And didn't actually want to seem to, like, do stuff with him. Like, she would go to the park, and my dad would play at the park with him. My mom would just kind of sit back and, like, take some photos to then show off to her neighbors about, we did all this play dates with my grandson, about, like... It's kind of like, remember I told you? I went in their house and she wants to be called Nana. And she has tons of Nana shit. World's Best Nana mugs and like a pillow that says Nana and...
This is all shit.
She's bought it all for herself.
Yeah,
we have never given this to her. My sister has never given this to her because she's not the world's best Nana. She's fucking terrible at it.
She's literally gone out and bought herself the world's best Nana mugs.
Yes. So as Enzo has been getting older, I've started noticing, I just didn't like she wouldn't, it was small stuff that I started to notice like, you aren't respecting his boundaries. You aren't respecting when he says no. Like, she used to tickle him and he'd eventually be like, stop. And it was no longer funny to him. And he was like 3 and 4. He's very young. But he'd be like, stop, no more, no more. And she wouldn't listen, like at all, because she wasn't ready to be done with it. And at that point, that's where I started to be like, this is reminding me too much of the fact that you have no concept of people's boundaries. And no concept of respecting the word no. Because as a narcissist, no doesn't apply to you at all. When someone tells you no, like that in one ear and out the other, doesn't exist in your world. And it just started to be things like that. And I was like, you're showing my kid off and you're not actually interacting very much with him. You just want the appearance of being a great grandparent. And you don't respect my kid's boundaries. And it's only going to get worse. And at the end of the day, like, my job is to protect my kid. So 2 years ago, it's been over 2 years now. Mm-hmm. We weren't at the point yet where we were ready to like cut them out. We had a vacation coming up, and we'd asked them 6 months prior to the vacation if for the 2 days that we had Enzo during the week we were going to be gone, if they could watch him, because we were going out of the country, like international trip, planned this 6 months in advance. They'd agreed to it. Less than a month before we were scheduled to leave, my dad calls. My mom always sends my dad to do her bidding. And it's just sickening because he can't, like, he won't leave it. He is a man of the logic of, I took my vows are for life, no matter how horrible my wife is, you know? So my dad calls and he's like, hey, Bridget, I think we're going to volunteer to work the census. And they aren't sure of the dates yet, but it looks like the training dates for the census are going to coincide with when we're supposed to watch Enzo, so we can't watch him anymore. And this was less than a month before we were leaving.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 weeks.
Do you remember how mad I was when I got off that phone call?
We were scrambling.
Do you remember how mad I was, though, when I got off that call? I was, like, shaking mad.
Mm-hmm. We were scrambling to try and find somebody to watch Enzo.
Because
it's not like you can just take him anywhere, you know? That's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal. I'm asking someone to watch him overnight when I'm out of the fucking country.
Right.
Like, So things that made me so mad about that situation, because I immediately, like, I fired up an email. I didn't send it, but in that heat of anger, I typed out a big, long email. Because I was just really, really fucking mad. But in that moment, I just was like, you're not even treating me like an adult. Because of the fact that you are telling me you will no longer watch my son, your grandson, because a better plan came along that might coincide, that my grandson is now a plan B. Like, he's not a top priority in your life anymore because something better came along. But more importantly, you're not treating me like a fucking adult by engaging in discussion with me on this. A logical adult would have said, hey, this might coincide. Are you able to find somebody else to watch him? If not, we've already made a commitment to you, so therefore we'll honor our commitment. But they would have a discussion, like adults would. But instead, they said, oh, you're our child and we are your parents, so therefore we dictate to you how things happen, and we don't discuss them with you because you're not an adult in our eyes. And that was like, that made me so mad. The fact that they let Enzo down, the fact that I was like, my kid's not going to be a plan B. You know, like, it's not happening. He's not going to just be, hey, if nothing else better comes along, we'll watch him. Like, he's what is excited for this. It was the final straw for me.
And it's been hard, and we haven't, you did really good for, a year and a half, no engagement, and now your mom started emailing you recently.
She had texted and asked if she could have our address.
Which we didn't give it to her.
Didn't give it to her.
Because they were going to change title, or they were going to change their
No,
power.
so that was before that. She had texted and asked for the address, and I wasn't comfortable with it. I talked to my sister, because my mom was also like, hey, therapy request fulfilled, which I have no idea what that fucking means. But I talked to my sister, and my sister was like, if you feel comfortable, maybe engage an email as like, hey, here's a carrot for going to therapy.
Yeah.
Because we can choose when and how often we want to respond to the email.
Mm-hmm.
So we just recently have opened up a little bit of communication.
But nothing. No, I think the most recent email we got today.
Yeah.
And her immediate request was, can I get a photo of Enzo?
Because she wants to show him off?
Because she wants to show him off. She doesn't even know Rhett exists.
No.
Your parents have no idea that you have another son.
Yeah. That they missed in 2 years. They missed a pregnancy, a birth in the first year of his life.
Yeah. They've missed a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder if your dad's ever really going to come to terms and, realize, hey, you know what? This relationship is not worth it.
Nope.
I hope for his sake and his sanity, someday he does.
I've talked with people that are close to him, that have known him like their whole lives, and they've talked with him over the years because I guess from early days of him and my mom dating, all these people that were close to him saw that she was super fucking toxic for him.
Yeah.
And
he didn't care.
He didn't care, and now that he's married, wife before kids.
Mm-hmm.
You honor your wife before your children in God's eyes. So therefore my wife will always... It would not even cross his mind the fact that she is costing him so much. Because he would never put her in that light. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is crazy.
You and I talked about, though, like, it's gonna be challenging to talk with Rhett one day when he's older about the fact that...
Because he doesn't have any grandparents on my side.
Yeah, not really. But the fact that we didn't tell my parents about him as a baby and what kind of trauma that will do to Rhett. Because Rhett could absolutely take the road of, I wasn't important enough to bring up at any point, which is not true at all. It was done for his protection and because we weren't having a relationship with my parents.
I don't know if it's really for his protection or ours.
It's both.
Because I don't feel like it... I feel like, parents always try to protect their children, the best that they can, but they end up messing it up anyway.
Every kid's going to have therapy. It's just a matter of how much.
Yeah.
That's my logic on it. But I think it's both. So, my mom's a narcissist. She refuses to take no for an answer, and she'll beat something to a pulp with requests. If she was made aware that she had a grandson and actively engaged in that conversation with us, it would go from okay with email to I need to see him, I have a right to see him, you're withholding him from me, I want to see him.
What makes her...
And then she would become Googling our names to find our address and doing title searches and trying to locate where we live and scouring the internet and blowing up, our extended family and aunts and uncles and cousins. It would be ridiculous.
there's a pretty good chance one day she's going to find out.
She will one day. It has to happen. Somebody in the extended family will pass away, and there will be a funeral or something like that we'll end up going to, and cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yep. By then, Red will be 16, and Enzo will be going to somewhere. I don't know. It's all a lot. It's parents, man. And I think we just try and do the best we can to not do what our parents did it,
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're so much different with Enzo and Rhett. Yes, we are a little bit more strict, but we don't take their stuff from them and tell them that it's ours.
Yeah.
And I would definitely never let them hang, just chill with some stranger in a house, in a bathtub,
That's the part that, is, I get it was a different era, but holy fuck.
Yeah, that's twisted.
And I guarantee my dad probably had no clue it was happening. Because unfortunately, her job was child rearing, and he worked. But he did child rearing the moment he got home and took over and handled everything because she was too exhausted from being gone running errands all day without us.
Mm-hmm.
But what she told him was she was too tired from child rearing all day. It's just crazy.
Well.
So yeah, that's
Eventually I have to tell everybody about my childhood.
Yeah. Your parents were kind of a little bit of the opposite. They were very distant.
Yeah, my dad, my dad he did the best he could. I think he was in an impossible situation because my mom was not available.
Yeah.
And she made that very known, and she wanted us to be aware that, my tennis, my work, everything else comes before you kids.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's crazy.
So.
Well, that's the Cliff Notes of why we don't really talk to my parents very much and why we have very limited interactions with them. Yeah. And why we made the really, really tough decision to yank Enzo out of their lives. And that was really hard. Do you remember at the beginning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he still asks about him all the time.
I know.
He says he misses Nana and Papa and he wants to go see them. And
we told him last time he'd asked about it, we said when he was 14, we would allow him to make the choice on his own.
Yep.
We didn't want to make him wait till 18, but we wanted him to be a little bit more mature where he could.
And at 14, he's probably going to be really annoying. So there you go. We'll just give him to the parents. There you go. This is for all those years that you sucked.
So, well, that's all we got for today, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Appreciate it.
Well, have a good week. And remember, we're just trying to do better than our parents.
Parenting's a trip, man. We're all on the ride.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. You can check us out at
freezermilk.com
or Instagram.
Freezer Milk Podcast.
Until next week, guys. Thanks.
Don't forget, parenting is a trip. We are all here on the journey with you together. Thanks so much for listening.